topic, just rocket science right now, and but it includes wide variety of uh, sci- uh, hot topics in the science, like mm, say exploring another planet or exploring just creating a uh, creating or artificial no, no uh, I forgot the name and international space stations for just observing while or just lands the stars. But one of the hot topics, I believe that's a latest issue that humanity needs to be solved, like moving into another planet, because as the population is growing so fast right now, the humanity cannot just reach enough water and land and food. That's why, well, although we need to just find a way to properly use our resources on Earth, but Earth is not the place all the time we can live, because Sun is going to just die after a couple of billions years, and we could also die before any accidents like huge asteroids, and that's completely unavoidable stuff that could happen. That's why the only solution for carry on for humanity for the next years or next periods, we need to just find a way, get out of here, and live anywhere else other than Earth. So that's why right now the price of the rocket needs to be a lot more cheaper. All of those fuels and the efficiency of the creating the rockets as well as new technologies. Because not rocket is not all the way to solve the issue. Because it also, if we spend a lot more for education, we could just create the new technologies like plasma energy. Like it's another state of the matter, like gas, solid, and liquid, and plasma. And if we just manage to just create an uh, find a find a way the energy out of plasma, we could get we could be as efficient as sun, and then create anything we want, like rockets, fuels for rockets, or own cars as well. That's why it's not just a simple just a rocket stuff, but you could also carry on an education, and then just you know it's for humanity. It's strongly connected each other. That's my
Good introduction. Yeah, yeah. Nice introduction.
about it.
Yeah, that's one of the. You mentioned well, like a couple of interesting topics that we can definitely continue within the event. I think the colonization, like right, rockets into like that can fit more people to move into another planet and try to mine something there first, I believe, and then colonize it, like to have like human colonies on other planets, specifically I think Mars. And they talk about the lunar station as well, if I'm not mistaken, right? But I think, yeah, if anybody wants to continue and if you have some thoughts on those topics, I would love to give you more space to speak, because it's not the most powerful sphere of my expertise. So I would allow you to
Yeah,
speak.
hello.
Hi, Anthony.
Yeah, I've got one comment. Hi.
Great.
Yeah, I've got one comment regarding that, and it's a question for Mr. Marilyn. So, why would we invest so much money into like building technologies that to go out of space? Like, wouldn't that money be better invested in Earth itself, like to solve the issues of this planet, rather than trying to go somewhere else and probably doing the same thing again? Like, we're gonna go there, we're gonna dig it up, we're gonna use the resources, and if we're gonna be in the same situation again, see. So I'd argue that it's actually better to invest all that billions and trillions into this earth itself and like find solutions to the problem, because it's already hard enough to live in some places like the Arctic, you know, where the places where there's like no water and there's no food and no resources. Like, that's also
Siberia, yeah.
that
Hmm.
Siberia, yes, so I was thinking such comment.
Yeah,
Anything
let's
about
talk.
that, Marilyn?
Yeah, let's talk. I also see hand raised from Paige, so we'll give a megaphone to her as well. But maybe, Mylins, do you have a response to that?
Alright, my first perspective all the time is that, as you said, first just said make it efficient, utilizing all the water and food supplies for all the human population, because without this, it's hard to just grow a family as well and grow a population in the country. But at the end, um, like right now, China is having a trouble in cities like Beijing. Everything's so expensive, and human beings or any little family living in a one cubic rooms, like 1 to 1 and well, 1 by 1 and 2, and it's so small, and they're living whole uh, such in cubic rooms, and I believe it's going to just carry on all over the world if we just mm, live in such an inefficient supply of foods and utilizing the water. But how can we just think about for next 100 years, or no, or next 1300 years? So the solution needs to be properly solved. Although we could just mm, scientists could just bring as efficient as possible and utilize all the lands on Earth, but the the place we're living is not all the time just a guaranteed that we could be alive on Earth, because like asteroids or any sun uh, waves that's coming from, or by any explosion inside the uh, surface. So you can't rely on such an dangerous place all the time, because if the whole humanity just dies because of the some accident that we couldn't notice, that's it. You can't. How can you just blame someone else if no one exists at those explosions, accidents?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a really good point there. I see your high level thinking, as in you're not thinking about the next 10 years or 20 years, you're thinking about the next generation, aren't you? So I
Not
guess that's important as well.
Yeah, like the sun hypothesis and like the sun factor is actually like millions and billions years ahead of the time. And I'm like, when scientists talk about the destruction of our planet by the sun expansion and like all that disastrous events, I'm like, wait a second, we are not sure about the climate change in the next 50 years, and you talk about the things that are millions, of years away. So yeah, but I like that perspective that people have to those points. It's only if you look into those far away hypotheses, I think you can also think about the today's problems more efficiently. Okay, so Paige, let me give you a megaphone, and also Mr. Headbeats, Mrs. Head, yeah. Mendes is not
Okay,
here,
so
but it feels like he is. He helps me all the time somehow.
you can call on me whenever no one's talking, and I'll just fill in space. I so have like a couple thoughts on it. One, I'll just tell you guys that I used to work in I started out doing satellite communications a long time ago. So I worked with setting up communication capabilities from here to there via satellite. But then that moved into tracking satellites, tracking them when they were launched, and they are launched on rockets, and then the rocket like the boosters or whatever fall off, and then go up and they get into orbit, and they use solar panels to stay in orbit and sort of take direction. Anyway, I have background on that, but I know that's not the point. It's weird to think about exploration outside of Earth and like going and living somewhere. I think first, the people that would actually go and live, let's say Mars. So if we were going to build a colony on Mars, which sounds absurd, but if we were, I mean, it wouldn't be us. It would be really rich, wealthy governments and their core people, just like we send people to the Arctic right now to do polar exploration and stuff like that. I think we would do the same sort of thing. And let's say 1,000 years from now, we could have a colony on there. I don't know where that colony would start from, or like, you just feel like it would be government run, right? Almost like a military base, and that just sort of goes into where space exploration comes from, which was, you know, Sputnik traveling around the Earth, and then the whole world saying, this is not an act of war. We are going to allow satellites to go over our airspace or space, whatever you want to call it. And
Cosmos.
we're allowed to do that. Yeah, so we allow now, or we decided, the whole world decided that day to say, okay, we're going to allow this to happen. Here's the precedent, and now we can send satellites everywhere. But I think for a lot of space exploration is about defense and wartime capabilities. There's also curing diseases, or there's like different stuff that's been able to be determined by our space exploration. Anyway, I don't worry about it. I guess I just don't pay attention to it. I just pay attention to what I can do today on Earth. I just really try to focus on my today on Earth.
Yeah, short-term planning. I like the way you used the Sputnik and then said like it's very respectful towards the Russian history and the background of the Sputniks and the cosmos. Yes.
Yeah, because it's a big part of the whole. I mean, Russia was the driving force behind space exploration, really, and I had to. A part of my studies at a time were to understand Russia's. I mean, on everything. The contribution, to say the contribution is not saying the right word, but, you know, establishing really the space program with Sputnik and then with the rockets and the technology was a big deal. And then the United States stole it, and then we got to the moon and all that, which is, I mean, that's just what countries do. That's what governments do.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is just driven by defense, which is kind of bad.
It is, unfortunately, for the majority of our history and like even the recent history, we see that the main motivation of for many technologies actually they say peaceful words and they say, oh, we are going to defend and we're going to help and whatever, but at the end of the day it's war, and conflict is one of the main drivers for things. Even though like the Oppenheimer's Manhattan Project was started to, oh, the Nazis are going to have like nuclear weapons, so we have to be first and then to have more control over the situation. But it just 5 or 10 years later, it was I don't remember who exactly was the president at that time, and because they knew that Russia the empire, like Soviet Union at that time, they were not sure that they have nuclear power as well. It gives you like some shadowy thoughts, like, oh, maybe we should destroy them just before they get as powerful as us. So it's like the gun violence that we mentioned last time. It's like when you have the gun in your hand, I think it kind of affects your way you think. I love this proverb, the Japanese proverb that I keep using for years and years and decades. When you have a hammer in your hand, everything seems like nails. It kind of changes the way you think when you have some tools, and it kind of affects the way you think. So I think we should be careful about the tools that we have. And I think the modern history moment of history, because I think I heard this phrase so many times, that we live in a book of history right now because there's so many significant events in the world, and I think that we should be very careful on what we do with our tools. Okay, Dr. Headbeats. Oh my goodness, I just mispronounced your name so many times.
Like it's hard, like heartbeats, because I'm a DJ in all space.
Oh, cool.
Music.
Yay.
So that's why my name is Heartbeats.
Heartbeats.
Beats are hard, but in medicine, because I'm a physician,
Yes, that I love the
eating,
yeah.
so
I love the game. I noticed that, but it just I'm not in my full focus in terms of speaking today.
yeah.
So please forgive me that. But still, yeah, I'm happy to
Somebody
see
needs
you.
more sleep. Yeah, somebody needs more sleep, a better diet, and
Definitely.
exercise. I guess the baby.
Diet is the thing. I lost I
Yeah.
lost the light in my eyes a couple of times today. I'm almost fainted. I'm like, okay, I gotta eat
Oh,
some more iron. Yeah,
yes.
nutrition. Anyway, so hi.
So on this topic, I've always been very interested in, outer space and also what's happening in our world. So, Anthony, there, nice haircut from last time I saw you. You cut the sides of your hair off. I noticed that. You're looking good. But I have to disagree with you on, what we research. I mean, we want to know as much as we can. So yes, we're researching, the inside of the earth and different parts of the world. We realized that a worm who was hibernating for hundreds of thousands of years a couple of weeks ago woke up and ate. So we're learning about our earth, but we also would like to learn about, our space. I mean, it's so interesting. The universe is so large, so fast. We know so little about it. I mean, when I think about it, I can't stop. So I think a lot of interested people find it interesting, and that's why they're learning about it. Whether or not we get hit by a huge asteroid and the world disappears forever, yeah, maybe one day by researching this, we're able to have see a meteor coming and hit it out of the way to save our planet, or understand, how to, have the earth last longer. I mean, the earth is a beautiful, beautiful place that happened. You know, we don't understand how this came about, because when you look into the universe, there's nothing like this that we can find. So I think people are just interested, and that's why they're researching it. I mean, we will have many problems whether we spend all that money researching Antarctica. There'll be another problem. So I think we're just looking into the things that we like to know more about. And, to understand where you come from is a very basic, primitive question that we all ask. And not just, who your mom and your dad are, but how the earth came about and this universe we live in that's beautiful, and we barely know anything about it. Like, understanding that would be a great step for us as human beings to understand where we came from and probably understand where we are going.
Exactly. I was just thinking that in my head. Yes, great. And I love the way you cushioned the impact. Like, oh, I love your haircut, but yeah, I have to disagree.
Yeah, doctor, yes.
Yeah,
I would
we're
have to
good
disagree
friends,
though.
so we can
Yeah,
do this.
Yeah. I like
great.
that as well. That was really cool. But yeah, doctor, all I have to say to that is like it's all in the future though, isn't it? Like what about now? Like right here and now? Like Paige was saying, like as you were saying, what about the problems that we have now? The people starving in the world, the people that need help. Like, what about those problems?
Well, well,
Like
if you're studying the universe, it's not about the future, it's about our past, because the light we see right now was emitted billions of years ago. So we're studying the past really when we look up into the sky, because it happened already. So we're also learning about ourselves, like how we came about by looking into the past. Um, there will always be starving people. We cannot solve the world's problems. We can do the best that we can. We can talk
we
about it.
can. I disagree. We can't solve the world's problem because if we're to put all that fund and research into actually saying, okay, how can we make sustainable living for everybody? How can we make everyone have access to food? How can we make everyone have access to water? And I believe that'll be done in no time. But instead, guys say, hey, like, let's build a rocket and let's try to go to Mars. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I
it's gonna
agree
right.
with you on
Well,
some point. We can do more. We can definitely do more, but there will always be problems. That's what I mean. There will always be the next thing. There will be war. There will be angry people fighting each other. There will be bombs dropped somewhere, because you can't control people. And usually the problem, a major problem is going to be
hmm,
caused by other people, and you can't control them. So we can, make sure people who are poor have something to eat, that they have clean water, that they're vaccinated. Yes, we can put more resources into helping others, but that doesn't mean that we, don't look into, other scientific areas that could actually become a solution. Like, the person who was studying the mRNA vaccines in the 70s didn't think that it would be used to, save us during COVID in 2020. They just studied it because they were interested. And
Oh,
2
save
years
us. Moksha,
ago,
save us. One sec.
it
How did it save us?
yeah.
Because some people didn't get vaccinated and those people are fine. And some
Well,
people got
that's good,
vaccinated and they
but
still got COVID. So
right.
like,
So,
I'd
I
say
mean,
like,
things are not perfect. Things are not perfect, but for the people who want to be safe, they have that available. So, sometimes doing research, I did research on the Drosophila eye and the color going from white to red, and it
hmm.
was just a paper I helped write. But one day, they can learn how to give blind people their eyesight back by all the information we figured out. You never know where the information is going to be. You
I,
have to keep looking and be interested.
I think it's happening already. Something similar. I've read an article about that, like the person who lost the eyesight. They had some experiments where he started seeing something instead of being just totally blind. So yeah, I agree on that. We once had a conversation about the creativity, and I think that's one of the keys to solving the problems. I agree to both of you. I think it's and why do we have to limit ourselves? Why do we create these false dichotomies like, oh, science or religion, like, right? Or maybe spirituality. Those are not opposites. They're just like, different parts of the spectrum, but they're not against each other. They're just different. And I agree that some people who feel like the problems on Earth are more important to solve, and I would say they're more at hand, like more short term, and we really need to take care of that right now. And they could do something to make it better, right? And there are 8 billion people in the world, and I'm sure that well, first of all, I think the first step is to understand that we are now is a collective organism. As I see it, we're one collective organism, and once we understand that, I think that coming up with a plan and a strategy for survival. I think now the question of survival is still at hand because we are not sure if there are other planets, and Mars seems to be a very long-fetched, far-fetched plan because it's going to be very difficult to do that. And we need to think about the different. There are some different experiments on Earth as well, like with these plants and people living in isolated areas with isolated environments. We could use that on the planet and outside the planet. So I think it doesn't hurt to try different things. And if people want to explore planets, why not? Because this is, I think, when you try different things and you find people who do what they really truly love and what they're interested in and what makes them curious and excited, I think that's where you find different spaces where the creativity that I think it's one of the most truly humane qualities. It could give us solutions for many problems on Earth and on other planets. So it doesn't hurt to develop in different directions, I guess. Yeah, I'm taking too much space now, and let me allow somebody else to take that space, right? Okay, let's see. Oh, I don't have any hand
I'm here to
raises.
take up space. I
Go
can take
ahead.
up space.
Go ahead.
Like I said, I'm here whenever anyone needs me to talk. So I think that like whenever the question of investment on space comes up, like I agree with you in my part. Like, of course, like why are we and other, well, United States government and other governments around the world like spending so much money into space exploration? My son is asking me a question, so whenever he comes in here, I'll answer him because I'm not going to scream in your guys' ear, and he's not supposed to talk to me from across the house anyway. Do you hear him? Hold on one second.
That's the most family event, I think, when somebody screams from the other part of the house.
Sorry. So, oh, okay. All I was going to say is that I think that I like when the civilian companies get involved in space exploration because it's less money that the government's spending, and then they don't have the bureaucracy and the red tape, so they're able to like innovate and sort of, do Scrum or Agile to get different things out there and be able to whatever faster. And I wish that we would spend more money on poverty and everything else. I also think we can't control our governments. We can help people, and yeah, some people can vote, some people can do whatever, but like our government's gonna do what governments do, and that money is like pretty small in the budget compared to everything else. I don't know. I'll let you go because in my heart I want us to take care
Yeah.
of,
Now,
of course,
honestly,
the
you
people
think
on Earth.
regarding the money,
The meteor
the
comes,
money.
it's sort of like
Sorry.
unless we are able to like save ourselves from it. But other than that, I'm just like, well, I mean, humans are gonna die off, or we're going to evolve up into something that can live through whatever comes our way, unless it's like a meteor, of course, like a one-day meteor.
Hey, I've got one thing to add. Can I add one thing before someone jumps in? Actually, no. Actually, you can add it. Go on, Marilyn. You can say.
Oh, regarding the evolving what we do have right now, like when it comes to the colonization, it sounds amazing, but it's never gonna happen because the n- closest neighbors like Mars, just although it's 6 months to reach, but there's no one there, and we can't just colonize whole planet, and there's no food, and you're gonna die. If you want to just go to another exoplanets that's close or sun, it's gonna take almost 100 light years. Yeah, when it's about the exoplanets, yeah, that has a water and it was like ecosystem, so it takes 100 years. It's never gonna happen as well as current technology because we haven't reached light years, light speed for rocket technology. But another solution, what I believe, is all about the artificial intelligence and just rise artificial intelligence like all kids and just rely on them for the continuing the living beings just mind. Because although it will be called as an completely human created stuff, but we could create a mind out of those silicon and just stop those accidents, like it's better than just that we couldn't just reach out another planet, because that's what I believe. And for those stuff, I believe that we need to think about the better computational cost for creating a better AI, because currently we already reached a silicon size as an atom size, almost 1 meter right now, and we have a huge bottleneck to expand the silicon power into parallelism like human brain. So probably quantum computing we do right now trying to could solve these issues, and we could create a better mind out of those new technology. And meanwhile, all those stuff comes into just education, and everyone should just spend some research on specific topic and just get together
Yay.
scientifically rather than just you know hang out. I, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for. Yeah, I was listening to you, and I think that the first step that humanity should take to get to those. To be honest with you, I think that it's like it's not a dichotomy, but I have a feeling when I think about the same things, I have two different perspectives. On one hand, I think we have reached so much that we know so much about space and about stars, and like we barely reached even like a couple of other planets on our in our system. One time we've been to the lunar surface and never got to Mars at all, but we know so much theoretically about the planets and other systems, and we can see their light and all that. I think we still need some extra time during I think develop these technologies with AI and different technologies on Earth. We need some time to settle down, and I think we need to develop the synchronicity between our intelligence and our mental health, our psyche, I think, because there are a lot of problems that come from those, conflicting systems that we have. And many people, although they're smart, although they have, they understand how to do things right, unfortunately, what they do, in fact, is they follow their emotions and some other issues and problems, and that's why we have a lot of conflicts on personal level and on the planetary level right now. And again, I think that we are just becoming aware of how united we are. With the internet, it's been, only 20, 30 years that we started learning about other people in the world and actually seeing them and having, personal connections with them. Look at Outspace. It's so new to the world to have this unity between different people from different parts of the world. And I think we need to exercise union first, and to understand how to act without stress and without emotional response to some things, but to make collective decisions on what to do together in order to solve those problems. Whether it being people who starve.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hi. Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear now? Can you hear?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear now. It's very silent for a minute.
Oh, okay, got it. Anyway, so yeah, I think we need to settle down a little bit, and I think that's what's gonna happen. Because many futurists, they say that the population is gonna reach around 10 billion people, and then it's gonna stop at that point, and people will have to get quantity into quality, I guess, at some point. And then, when we reach some kind of team building level, then we can solve problems easily. But so far, I think there is some conflict, and there's no synchronicity between countries, between leaders, between people, even ourselves. I think these a couple of years were so turbulent. For me, it was even longer, like 3 years or 4 years. It's been very turbulent, and things have changed very dramatically. So we moved from a very straightforward, simple world to something deeper and more difficult and more disturbing. And I think that's going to grow for some time until people realize that and understand what's really important, not consuming, not having those material things, but having that synchronicity between your needs, your thoughts, your intelligence, and your soul, basically, your psyche. So yeah, that's pretty much it that I wanted to mention. I've had some hand raised from Baba Booey, I think, so let me give a megaphone. I keep losing you in my on my board. That's why I never gave you a megaphone before.
Oh, you're fine. I actually forgot what I wanted to ask. It's been a while.
Uh-oh, yeah, sorry.
No, I... What's that?
We were talking about the space, colonizing planets and, saving our own planet. Maybe that was the point when you wanted to ask.
Well, I think I got a question for Paige, and I think she just went away.
Uh-oh.
Here. Paige.
I think she's having problems and rejoining, I guess.
Yeah, when she's back. But Anthony, you made a good point earlier on that you were talking about, why not
And she's back.
the ones that are poor and she's back. And I appreciate that thinking because Ari, you made a mention about how dichotomistic thinking we are, especially from the Greek, right? That's how we came about the black and white side of things, the dichotomistic thinking concept and everything. And I think the beauty about this is that why not this and that instead of doing either this or that? And
exactly.
I like the beauty of the exploration, and yet something that we can help at home. Paige, now that you're back, you made a mention about 20 minutes or 15 minutes ago, something about so you're in space exploration or rocket exploration for many years. I've been in the business of eradicating poverty for the past 21 years, and I have a company that does that, looking into education. And I think Galen was talking about, providing education and providing options and understanding options. Even support. I'm from Malaysia, but trying to eradicate poverty in the U.S. itself, in the Western world, so that they can change their mindset on what poverty is all about, but to embrace things that you don't need everything in order to feel happy. But on the flip side, Paige, you're talking about how Rocket is a proponent, and I don't want to misquote you, so I might get this wrong, but how Rocket is a proponent for political agenda.
Yep.
What do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is because I was working for the Department of Defense for so long, from when Clinton was president in the United States, so from Clinton to Bush to Obama, you guys know, all the way up to Trump and then now Biden, right? So I saw that. I mean, everyone sees it, but I was like 18 when I started, and so I didn't know. But whenever I got into the space world, we'll just keep it on space. Whenever I got involved in the space side of things, when we initially, for instance, when Russia sent Sputnik around the Earth, up until then, it was seen as a breaking airspace, right? So, if a plane were to fly over Russian airspace, even since I guess probably the 40s or so, whenever we really started, or 30s and 40s, when we started using aircraft to drop missiles instead of just for recon. Anyway, when Sputnik happened, then that was perceived as around the world as, is this a threat? Should we treat it like a threat? And then politically, it became, okay, if they can send a satellite over our country, then we can send a satellite over their country. So now we're able to spy on each other. And everything, if you look at GPS satellites, right? So even that, we have timing that the entire world goes off of. Timing and triangulation and using all of that, where are we at and how close can we pinpoint things. And that satellite constellation is run by the United States government. How the entire world knows where they are, timing on our devices, all GPS timing is run by the United States government. Well, within that constellation, right? And everything is just getting a leg up. So if we can shoot down, we see China when they shoot down their own satellites, prove that they can, right? That's saying that they can send an intercontinental ballistic missile, like an ICBM, and shoot something long range using one of their missiles. And the same rocket technology that we shoot satellites into the sky, that we shoot spaceships into the sky, and that we shoot ICBMs into the sky. All of this is based on the same type of technology. It was just the space race for political reasons, the Cold War, all of that, and then the United States got to the moon, and this was this huge triumph. Even though we got that technology, the rocket technology from the Russians, it's just constant. The entire space. I mean, it's now we have Spacecom is a military department in the United States, and that's because of space being the next domain of warfighting. So we have land, sea, air, space, and now cyberspace. We can go and attack, and that's the industry I'm in, right? So now we can go and attack, and we can non-kinetically, it's a non-kinetic attack. You don't have to shoot anything. You can just shut someone's stuff down. You can tell their whole population something that's not true. When I say we, I just mean all the nations in the world that have this technology.
Yeah, Russian hackers too.
Yeah, it's really hard, but I think that it's definitely political agenda, because we use our 4 pillars: diplomatic, information, military, what's the E? Economy, right? So then, this is the military portion of it and the information portion of it. And we just want to be, we want to dominate that space. So that way, if someone attacks us, we can win.
Well,
Win,
appreciate your
whatever
insight,
that
Paige.
means.
Yeah, unfortunately, like many modern technologies and even like substances. Remember, some in the '60s there were like so many interesting things going on in all terms. And once LSD was invented in the '40s, around earlier, I think in the '50s or '60s, it was a experiment. There were experiments by the American government, as far as I know. It's like not as top secret now, that they were trying to use the substance to distort people's thinking and try to come up with a solution to control people and to use them somehow in military, operations or some. There's so many interesting things that are used later in military or intelligence goals to get some more information or to get some to exercise power, maybe to learn something about other countries' plans. And being in Russia and America, I think we can, even the information that is available to us as just simple humans. I'm not in the military, but that proves that the simple information that even I have access to shows how far people can go. And especially in the past, those 50, 60 years, people were ready to go all the way to get some more power. And yeah, it's not surprising. And that's what makes me a little bit sad, because the tools, the way we use tools is the way what defines us as a humankind, I think. And so far, it's been like, oh, I have a hammer, I gotta hit something and first, and not always build something. So anyway.
I think there's positive, so I want to make sure, I'm so sorry, but, I don't mean that it's all negative, and not all political agendas are negative, right?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that I'm not coming across as it's bad, because I don't necessarily think, okay, the motivation maybe is bad or maybe is good, depends on how you look at it, but then there's a ton of positive impacts, what Hardeep was talking about. All the different scientific discoveries, internet, right? Internet was driven by military goals and political agendas, and now look like we're able to do this, and the information spreading and access to information, which is critical to solving poverty and getting information into places where people don't have access to it. So not saying it's all bad at all. I'm just saying that it's driven from that, which always makes me question what happened with it.
Mm-hmm.
I get suspicious of what are we going to do with this technology when I know that it was motivated from a military or a defense or a political agenda. Whereas, even if it has great and wonderful are understatements for the amount of what we've learned that can help people, it's just the harm that can be had or has been had because of the technology is also part of it.
Back to what Ari was saying earlier, right? If a nation is perceive themselves as a hammer, everything is going to look like a nail, right? That's the Japanese proverb that she was bringing it up. And I think if a nation is going to look at it as hey, the space is going to be the next frontier that we will have warfare on, or cyberspace. This is where we're going to have warfare on. Everything that they do, they think, they strategize is going to be something that they're going to be striking. So if I look at this, for instance, ICAN, right? I'm sure, Paige, you're very familiar with ICAN, the nuclear, this armament act. There are only 9 nations that have nuclears right now.
Mm-hmm.
Russia and US being the 2 biggest ones, right? But if you think about it, these are the perceptions of the 2 countries that are seeing themselves as hammers. How is it that when we say in the U.S. saying that, we have to get rid of all nuclear because of the safety of this world and everything, but U.S. they don't even do that themselves to disarm it. And then it was guys under the fact that it's for defense, just in case. But it doesn't make sense to me that this is a push in a sense for peace, but yet with a hammer in the other hand, if that makes sense. So that's why your comment earlier made me think in a sense of, yeah, it's politically driven because who's going to have the final dominant power, and who's going to bully the loudest, right? And if you have more nuclear, the more that you can send over, and to stop it. I can see that a lot of the colonizing nations are the ones that has the most nuclear, and they are the ones who are trying to dominate it, and call it a political defense. So this is what I'm kind of struggling with. After all, hey, Ari, if I'm not wrong, this is an open space. This is a safe space to talk about
Yeah.
things like this, correct? Okay. So and so I look at it, it's like, Pakistan and India, they have been in turmoil for a long time. China has it, and they are the biggest nation in terms of population. They are the biggest country in the world. Yeah, but look at them. They are a fraction, less than 10% of how many warheads the U.S. has in terms of nuclear, right? So why is it that it's okay for U.S. to make such a big deal about everyone else when they hold about 5,000 over warheads, Russia 6,000 over? And then
Yeah,
with
it's
all
not okay.
NATO countries combined together, they are more than Russia.
Yeah, there.
Someone said something?
Yeah, a quick comment. I agree with you. This is such a good point. I love the way you mentioned that, because I remember that from here, from my perspective, I think you are making the right point and it makes sense. But unfortunately, the majority of people, when they are exposed to information over media, they have a different picture of what the reality, because the facts and the way you perceive them is not always the same. Like with sharks, I like this example because it kind of shows our psychology. Sharks or airplanes cause so many people to be afraid of something. But if you take the statistics, like the real numbers, there's more possibility to die from coconut than from a shark, or to be, to die in an airplane crash. Yeah, but people are not afraid of coconuts. They're afraid of sharks because they have such a huge emotional response to this, terrible death when they're, in fire and of the airplane crash, or maybe like the shark is eating them, and it terrifies them, and it kind of steals from their ability to just see the common sense. And it is true. I've seen some paper about, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there was a paper agreement between countries after there was a long period of I think Cold War, and after that there were some agreements between countries to reduce the number of warheads. And the country, of course, it's a very sensitive moment too, because how would you control that? And it was another point where I think there was another point that where the United States didn't follow the schedule as they planned to reduce the number, and they still had like a larger number of warheads, in fact, while saying that, Russia doesn't reduce the number of warheads, and they develop other kinds of rockets and all that. It is, I think that's another point that is going to affect how people see the reality, I think, because it's important how you market things rather than, the reality is. I think that's one of the points that I was talking about when I said that we have to exercise our union and our thinking and train our thinking into listening to the logic and what makes sense and what's humane, rather than listening to our emotions and making faulty decisions.
I think, yeah, and you're right. And you're referring to the United Nations, the Nuclear Weapons Reduction Act that was put together right after that.
Yes.
And I think it goes. I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead. You're great.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were talking about a coconut and shark, right? I think there is a collective societal mindset that certain nations or certain group of people are always wrong no matter what. So, for instance, bringing Paige's example earlier, that China shot down their own satellite. Okay. So in my part of the world, in Asia, we saw that as like, wow, China is taking steps and actions in their own hand to shoot down something that they want to disband because of the spying and everything. They are making their own effort to shoot down their own satellite so that there will be less of spying around and stuff, right? But the perception that Paige was also talking, not saying that that's Paige's perception, but a collective Western mindset is that, look at that. They have the rocket power ICBM to go intercontinental and they can be attacking you at any time. But the half eastern part of the world perceive it as a look at the heroic stance that China took in order to disarm their own. And it's really interesting. That's why I kind of started off with the collective perception of the society that they are always good and bad, right? That they're good and evil countries. And it's always labeled as one is good and the other one is bad. But if I look at it, I bring up the nuclear disarmament earlier on, I bring up China. It's like, why that if China is so bad, they are the first one to shoot down their own satellite. They are only holding about 300 plus nuclear warheads, whereas the good country, like the Western countries, are the ones collectively has more nuclear warheads than anyone combined.
Yes, that's such a great point.
That is where that's where the contradiction and that I'm struggling with. That's where the tension is.
I guess I'll say, like, I want to be clear. I don't think that America is a great country. Like,
I agree.
Well, the rest of the world thinks so,
I'm not.
I guess.
I like to differ. I was born in Suriname, which is in South America. You know, I was born in a country that was a former Dutch colony. I grew up in a very small country, pretty poor. My mom came to the United States. She was a single mom. My father had mental health issues. She came to the United States. She had no papers. She worked hard. She brought us over. I happened to be very intelligent. I was, you know, my school was paid for. I went to the top medical schools in the United States. I got loans. I got, you know, free money to develop my mind. If I didn't come to the United States, I would not be a doctor. So I know a lot of people, even other, you know, Americans, people who are born here, always say a lot of stuff about the United States. But you can't say one country is bad or good. I mean, there's many good things about this country. Yeah. I love this country. I would never be what I am today without the United States. There's many great people here. The science here, you know, the great science. We have people who care. I learned so much here. And, you know, whatever country you don't like the United States or the West, whatever country you live in, they also do terrible things. People are good and bad, yin and yang. And you can't just point out the good, the bad without pointing out the good. America does a lot of good things in the world. Yes, they kind of see themselves as the boss. And a lot of times the boss also means you're going to piss people off or you're going to do things, you know, that other people don't like. But America is a great place if you are willing to work hard and find the good people to associate with. We are leaders, you know, with other countries as well, with Russia and China and Europe especially, you know, when it comes to science and research and space and learning. Yes, war is always going to be a problem. We as humans have fought our whole history with each other for power. All human beings, only a few have evolved to not care about power, money, and sex. So most of our problems come from, you know, us not overcoming our desires of power, money, and sex. And those are human beings all throughout the world. So I would say I love America. I think it's a great country. Yes, we're not perfect. No one else is. But if you're going to talk about war and stuff like that, everyone is at fault. Okay? I'm sure China does things that we don't know about. I'm sure the United States does things that we don't talk about. You know, there's people in every country that want to be powerful and willing to put the next person down.
Exactly. Amazing point.
I'm so sorry. I just wanted to say, like, yeah, whenever I'm saying that I don't think America is a good country, it's about that good and bad dynamic that Baba Booey was talking about. Like, I wouldn't say good or bad because, I mean, in some cases we're really bad, and in some cases we're really great. So there's that. But when we're talking about, I do want to, like, really quick just say, like, not all of the, you know, Asia Pacific, India, like Indonesia area was all supportive of China's launch. Like that's just not true. Um, it's good that China said or did. I don't care if China shoots down a spy satellite. We all have them. But whatever, even if they had good intent, it still also showed countries like South Korea, um, Taiwan, all of the South China Sea, that entire region, that they had a capability to launch or to at least execute a war without leaving their land base. And so this was a big deal. And it scared a lot of people, right or wrong, it scared some countries out there. Because even if they were shooting down whatever satellite, it was also a show of force, just like the United States does all the time. Um, there's like the collateral impact of anything we do. And the collateral impact of shooting down a spy satellite, which maybe is for good reasons, is also that everyone knows that we can bomb them from right here where we're at. And that did scare some countries over there. Now, is it awesome to see that a foreign nation can do that, or like someone close to do that? Of course. I mean, space exploration and the things we can do with it is, fascinating and exciting. Yeah. So yeah,
Mhm.
good and bad thing. Yes, I agree completely with what you're saying too. I just don't think there's what our governments are doing, and then there's what the people are, what the people believe. And some people stand right behind the government and trust everything that they're told. But I think a lot of us do not believe that America has the best. Our government has my best intentions in mind, or yours, or anybody.
Well,
I
I
don't
think
know.
when it comes, I
Yeah.
think when it comes to war, nobody intent, we don't matter. So the people who are, building satellites, putting satellites in space to spy on each other, and, those people in charge of those operations have, being the most powerful in mind. And whenever we think like that, everyone loses. The person doing it will lose. They just don't know it. We all lose. And that's true for all of these countries. That's true for China. That's true for the United States, Russia. All these countries that want to be the most powerful in the world so they can do whatever, they don't have our best interests in mind as human beings. So it's not
Yes.
just one country, it's all of them.
Agreed.
We have to hold
Yes.
them all accountable for it.
Yeah, yeah, Mystic, I saw you. Yeah, and I thought, oh, I wonder if Mystic wants to talk. And I saw your hand raised. Yes. Okay, let me give you a megaphone. And yeah, a quick comment.
I was gonna say that I came in.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. Yeah, while I'm giving you a megaphone. Hold on. I had that comment in my head when I heard that we were talking about the best country in the world. I'm like, if we ask ourselves what's the best country in the world, I think we already failed the test, because finding who's the strongest, who's the biggest, is that initiatives that kind of brings that violence to the world, because you want to know the space where you are and your hierarchy, who's at the top, and that kind of starts that violence and war and competition. Yay, Mystic, so it's your time to shine.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
but let's see if you have a megaphone. Yeah, you do have a megaphone.
I
Mhm.
walked in on some really great dialogue. Wow, really enlightening. Because I joined a little later, I wanted to ask the questions as we're talking about the relationship of the superpowers. How does the group feel about BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, and China proposing to create their own reserve currency? So if anyone sort of is up to speed on the concept of a
I'm all
reserve
for it.
currency, yeah, I think it's going to be. I know we're worried about the military aspect of world dominance, but we cannot forget the economic warfare as well that's superimposed on the military industrial complex as well. So I think I saw last month that they are preparing to develop a reserve currency. And in my opinion, when that happens, we as Americans are literally going to see a significant shift in our economic
Yes.
power. I mean, that's where the power resides with having the reserve currency, which U.S. I mean, sort of took that lead back after World War II. So if what they're building economically takes a foot, I don't think we have to worry much about the military aspects for now because economically, China is already dominating the world. And once China and Brazil and Russia and India partner to where all currency is pegged to their currency, I think that conversation really is going
Shifts.
to shift it
Mm-hmm,
pretty
mm-hmm.
significantly.
Yeah, I think the cryptocurrency.
Question.
Go ahead. Yeah, and I think the cryptocurrencies also started that wave of changes. And within this conflict between Russia and whatever, I think inside Russia they say, "Oh, we are not fighting against Ukraine. They're like basically Russians' brothers." But it's like against the domination of the Western world, and it's like the bigger picture. And what they did in this conflict when they stopped the supplying gas, they requested to change. They're like, oh, okay, we agree to supply more gas, but we need to switch to Russian rubles. So that was the condition that if Europe buys the gas using something like not, which is not dollar, that was also the beginning of this, currency shift into the in the world. And I think that's probably backed up by China, because I don't think that Putin would so boldly do all these things unless they had some backup from these countries. It's not very visible, but it's probably what's going on, because I think we live in such an interesting time. Anyway, so we still have some times.
And I was just going to
I mean, if you think
reply and
about
say
it-
cryptocurrency. Oh, if I could just
Go ahead.
reply to her statement really quickly, but I think that's a very important point to bring cryptocurrency into the conversation because, for good or bad, cryptocurrency has expanded the literacy about currency, fiat, and I think a lot of folks through the use of cryptocurrency realize the dollar is supported by nothing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so because the dollar is supported by nothing, I mean, some would say that it is supported by oil, because oil is, of course, traded in units of dollar. But technically, once we removed ourselves from the gold standard in the 70s, our fiat is not backed by anything tangible. And I find it very interesting that BRIC, they want to not only establish a new federal, a new reserve currency. The reserve currency that they're developing will be backed by gold, not cryptocurrency, but backed by gold itself again. So in some ways, we're seeing history repeat itself. So just wanted to throw that in as a quick
And
response.
I think, to me, my personal opinion, BRICS should be the next reserve currency, because just like you said, in 1971, Nixon decided to unpeg the dollar against gold. So it's pretty much hearsay right now. It's like the word of the U.S. federal government saying that this is the value of the U.S. dollars, right? But part of it is that's what's dominating a lot of the wars. That's how it's fueling a lot of the dispute around the world. But if you have nations that has 5, by the way, South Africa is part of the BRICS as well. So Brazil, I'm losing my mind here. Russia,
it's Brazil, Russia, India, and China.
India, South Africa, and Chinese, right? But there are going to be checks and balances out of these 5 countries, rather than just one country monopolizing the whole entire reserve. So I think that's a great way. Now it's going to be backed with by gold. That's what's going to be backed up with. That you're right. I don't know if history is going to repeat itself. I think it was more of like there are going to be 5 different countries that needs to talk to each other, and they need to come to a consensus to agree if there's going to be packed or unpacked. They're the only ones. And they're like the ones that are saying that, yeah, we're not gonna pack it by gold anymore. We're just gonna unpack ourselves, and that's what's causing it the way it is right now. So if you look at the U.S. dollar, it is declining. But recently, with the Fed increasing the rates, look at the rest of the world. I mean, everyone was seeing a decline on the value of their currency just because of one safe haven. And right now, if we can remove that safe haven from one single currency to a currency that is backed up by 5 different economies, well, then you're going to have a lot more stability around the world. Anyway, that's my point.
Mm-hmm. Great point. Sorry, I used like my headset to jump into here, and because I wanted to really take a video of this beautiful geography that we have here. So it's pretty cool. It's a good point, and I have a feeling that the world is changing. It's not a comfortable transformation, as I said. I have a feeling that the recent years has shown that. But I'm sure that there's something good awaiting us, I think. And I love how we see these globes in VR in particular more and more often. And it kind of helps me definitely to have this, larger idea of what the world is. And I hope that the humanity is going to stabilize over, a couple of next centuries. And, I want to believe that we are not going to destroy ourselves. And I think that we are at the point where there are turbulences. They show what we can, what we can do. We can't destroy our whole planet. We have plenty of technologies that can do that. And but I think that there's something, something clicked over here, and people realize that it is possible, and that we should not do that. And maybe that's going to be the beginning of the next phase of our development, to stabilize and use the resources that we have in one part, some parts of the world, to support other parts of the world that are suffering from, climate change and, a lack of water and a lack of food. And we can do that. I'm sure that we can develop into the next phase of our, humanity. The life of that. Isn't that great? We have like.
Can I make one?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just want to make one last point here. I promise I'm gonna keep quiet after this.
No, I don't want you to feel that way. I just enjoy listening to you. So please speak more.
Dr. Hartbeats, I think one of the things that you made a point earlier is that U.S. is a great country. To a certain extent, I agree with you. By the way, I congratulate you coming out of Suriname and being making yourself someone of yourself in the U.S. and all. But one of the statements that you made is that we don't know what China do, and I can see that Jack G here is from China, and the problem is that the mindset, and again, this is the collective perception by societal. I call it brainwashing. We don't know what China is doing, so we're gonna guess bad of them first. But the thing is this: if you look into the history of China, they have never started any war. But the existence of the United States for the past 200 years, they have been at war except for the past for 17 years in their existence. So it is hard pill for me to swallow to hear people say that, oh, China, we just don't know what they're going to do, so we're going to think bad about them, when 200 plus years in the U.S. has only been at war as someone. The U.S. is at war right now still. I mean, that is where I find it difficult to understand why is there a paradoxical mind shift in terms of, if it is not the Western country, if it's not the U.S., that means they are stemming from an evil intention. China is not. They haven't started any war at all in their history.
Well, when you're talking about history, I remember the cannon, China actually invented the bullet, invented guns long time ago. So there was a lot of war in China, and China came up with these weapons. So it's not like China is very peaceful. All these weapons stem back from China, somebody in China
But you gotta
figuring
hear
out
what I
how
just
to
said.
make
I
their
said not started. I said did not start any war. They have the right to defend themselves. I'm not
I'm
saying
talking
I
about
said
history.
started.
Since you brought up history, China has
That's right.
a history
Never
of many
started.
wars.
That's
Yeah,
right.
well,
They have never started any war. They have always defended themselves. They have the smarts and the strength to invent cannons and guns and everything to defend themselves.
Yeah.
But are you saying that Chinese need to step back and let whatever other superpowers to take over them? Do they not have the right to defend themselves?
No, I'm just saying in history, within China there were many wars in the Chinese
Absolutely.
region. Right.
Absolutely.
And And what I'm seeing now, like right now, the people in China are rioting and fighting back against their government, just like the people in the United States have rioted and fought against their government. I'm not saying that one country is better than the other. We are the same. China is not better than the United States. The United States is not better than China. We all have our issues we have to deal with. We all
But
have
your
to
tone
get
was
over.
different just now. Your claim was different earlier when you said that China has something that is that they have evil intention. They can fight among themselves, but China is not going to come to the United States and try to inject their political mindset or their military power on in the United States. But you
Oh, I
have
think they
just
already
said on other countries.
Yeah, I think.
No, I think that they have. I think